nada modu be alafu Mamos. Bidilana Mamos media wala nada modu be alafu Mamos. Television on the radio la Carola ñun la daraja tabi mol ka ñun la waning. Multimedia Africa and in diaspora atare nada modu be alafu Mamos. Mamos media Multimedia Africa and in diaspora wala nada modu be alafu Mamos. Mamos media atele nada modu be alafu Mamos. Nene boja sangarango oh nene afana be Oslo de no.
Good evening and welcome to today's news review. You live on Mamos Radio. I'm your host Rohi Konatige.
You're on Mamos Media. It is Friday, 22nd of January 2021. I am Nene with a review of the nation's top headlines. First cabinet meeting held on Thursday, 21st of January 2021. These are the conclusions of the first cabinet meeting held on the 21st of January 2021. Cabinet discussed and adopted a paper presented by the Honourable Minister of Information and Communication Infrastructure on the Universal Access and Service Policy, which seeks to make the Gambia a technology-enabled, service-orientated nation integrated into the global economy where citizens access affordable telecom services. The objectives of the Universal Service and Access Policy are as follows: to increase digital literacy in schools to not less than 76% and not less than 65% digital literacy amongst the country's workforce. Support innovation programs for the youth to become more creative and productive. Support local content creation and application development. Achieve the delivery of affordable, equitable, good quality and efficient access to at least Mbps broadband service to everyone. And achieve greater social and economic development through the use of information and communication technologies, application and services. The policy establishes a public fund financed primarily through contributions by mobile network operators and other telecommunication service providers to underserved areas and populations. APRC brands Barrow as, quote, worst enemy. Fabakary Tombong-Jatta, the interim leader of the opposition Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, APRC party, has described President Adama Barrow as APRC's, quote, worst enemy. The former Serekunda East lawmaker was speaking in an interview with Star FM, saying President Adama Barrow should be held responsible for whatever is happening to the APRC because he is at the helm of affairs. Quote, Barrow is the president and it is government. So anything that happens, even if it was done by another person, he should be the one to accept or not accept anything from happening. So in that light, we described Adama Barrow and his government as the worst enemies of APRC because they unjustifiably seized our fundamental rights, unquote, says the former NAM. OJ says compensating victims more useful than prosecuting Jammeh. Veteran politician and former minister in both the Jawara and Barrow governments, Omar Jallow OJ, has advised the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, TRRC, to recommend for victims reparations over former Yahya Jammeh's prosecution. The TRRC is investigating and establishing an impartial historical record of human rights violations on the Jammeh and also considers reparation for the victims of abuses, promote reconciliation and promote non-reoccurrence. The Commission is set to conclude its public hearings during the first week of May 2021 and during the rest of May and June prepare the final report containing its findings and recommendations. That report will be submitted to the President in early July. Gamcell owes over $1 billion to Broadband Network Project. Gamcell Activity Report presented to the National Assembly by its board showed the national communication outfit owes $1,250,000,000 loan for the installation of the national broadband network. The activity report of Gamcell for the year ended 31st of December 2019 disclosed that when the Gateway project was under the control and management of Gamcell, it used to generate over 80% of the company's revenue. These disclosures were made during the presentation of the Gamcell activity and financial reports for the 31st of December 2019 before members of the National Assembly Standing Committee on Public Enterprise chaired by Halifa Saleh, the member for Serekunda. Thanks for tuning in and have a fun-filled weekend, listeners.
Thank you, Nene, for today's news review. Listeners, you live on Mamos Radio. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good evening. I'm your host, Rohi Konatege. On today's news review, Mamos Radio takes a look at the international news making a splash in national newspapers in the United Kingdom and the United States. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Good evening, listeners. I am your presenter, Sainab Njaiba. Thank you for joining me on Mamos Radio as I take a look at the national newspapers' front pages from the UK. One story dominates the front pages of Thursday's national newspapers. The new U.S. president echoed Abraham Lincoln in pledging that "my whole soul is in this," as he implored Americans to join him in renewal and resolve. The newspaper says Joe Biden is a president in a hurry as he promises to try to heal a bitterly divided America. The Daily Express says the world has witnessed the birth of an era of hope with the start of the Biden presidency, as Boris Johnson welcomed the new American administration as a big moment for Britain. The Independent has a quote from Joe Biden's inaugural address saying democracy has prevailed, as it reports the incoming U.S. president has promised to unite a nation divided by crisis. The Daily Star calls Donald Trump the incredible sulk as he slunk off from the White House, leaving his successor Joe Biden a note. Joe Biden has been sworn in as the 46th U.S. president, promising to bring in a spirit of national unity to guide the country through one of the most perilous chapters in American history, says The Guardian. The Daily Mail has the headline, "Don's Gone, Let's Go Joe," as the paper says Mr. Biden tried to turn the page on 4 of the most turbulent years in America's history, as he pledged he would serve those who did not vote for him as diligently as those who did. Joe Biden called for America to end its uncivil war between political factions as he attempted to draw a line under the divisions of Donald Trump's presidency, says the Daily Telegraph. The Daily Mirror has called Joe Biden's inauguration a day of history and a day of hope as he and his vice president, Kamala Harris, offer the U.S. and the rest of the world a brighter future. America's new president, Joe Biden, has promised to make the U.S. a beacon to the world again and urged its citizens to end the nation's uncivil war, writes Metro. U.S. democracy and appealed for unity in a divided nation as he was sworn in as the 46th president, reports the Financial Times. Thank you, listeners. That was the UK's national newspapers' front pages. Please stay tuned after the break. We will take a closer look at The Guardian and The Telegraph. Thank you. Welcome back, listeners. Let's take a close look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph, which features a picture of Joe Biden, his wife Jill, daughter Ashley, and son Hunter alongside him as he took the oath of office on the family Bible. New U.S. President calls for all Americans to support him in inaugural address, appealing for unity in a divided nation. Joe Biden yesterday called for America to end its uncivil war between political factions as he attempted to draw a line under the divisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In his inaugural address beside the Capitol after being sworn in as the 46th U.S. President on his family Bible, Mr. Biden talked of the need for tolerance, humility, and a better understanding of each other. The Democrat urged those who did not vote for him to hear him out, saying that politics need not be a raging fire destroying everything in its path. While the message of unity was the dominant theme of the speech, Mr. Biden also spelled out the daunting challenges he hopes to overcome. The Daily Telegraph says that the day was a moment of triumph for Mr. Biden, coming 48 years after he became a senator and 38 years after he embarked on the first of 3 White House bids. Coverage of Joe Biden's inauguration continues on pages 3 to 7. Also on the front page, floods will worsen, warns Prime Minister, as thousands prepare to flee homes. Thousands of people in Manchester are facing evacuation from their homes because of flooding, which Boris Johnson warned could get worse next week. Families already enduring lockdown were warned power cuts were likely, while some in the Didsbury area of the city were already being moved from their homes. Ministers feared Storm Christoph would also affect the rollout of vaccines in some areas, as flooding threatened to close vaccination centers and interrupt the delivery of the jabs. That report continues on page 2. The Daily Telegraph also reports that hotel groups have begun holding talks with government officials about using their facilities to quarantine people arriving in the UK. A Whitehall source has told the paper early discussions have been held in case. Listeners, we now look at the front page of The Guardian, which features a picture of a gesticulating Joe Biden as he delivered his inaugural address yesterday with the headline, "Democracy has prevailed." Appeal to national unity on America's Day as Biden dedicates himself to rebuilding a country ravaged by disease, racial inequality, and political division. Joe Biden has been sworn in as the 46th President of the United States, promising to marshal a spirit of national unity to guide the country through one of the most perilous chapters in American history. Speaking under a bright winter sky, Biden declared democracy has prevailed during a ceremony that honored the perseverance of a sacred ritual of American democracy at the U.S. Capitol, where exactly 2 weeks ago, a swarm of supporters loyal to his predecessor stormed the building in a violent and futile last stand to overturn the result of the election. "This is America's Day," Biden said, looking across the sprawl of the capital city's national monuments, now guarded by a military garrison unprecedented in modern times and devoid of spectators as a result of the COVID pandemic. This is Democracy's Day. That report continues on page 2. Thank you, listeners. That was the UK's national newspapers front pages review with me, Sainam Jaiba. Stay tuned to Mamos Radio for the rest of our news program. Until next time, thank you.
We'll be back with the Mandinka News with Lamin Marong.
Assalamu alaikum madingulu mal konton na tolo nal konton di mala nal padi ma Lamin Marong dol kay kiaman sa felen dunta albela moy kan Mamos la radi bumbala kontal daga kibaro mi futande le wato wate binkana wala kiyale ba janin kake fonsi kafulu ne modu tentu mani alonko ikan sembentu ya wato bela telegam la kafuba be tentu la bakira doku kendola nena on Mamos Media Foundation me Gambia na doku la me Gambia ni Gambia bantala be tentu le la kekendela jemenke nga kibaro ku folo di la janin kadum kibaro fango kono iko ben sankuto men kono men kete 2021 ti iko Gambia man sakunda yela meeting follow ke nyin talata tambila tubabu karo tilmo anin killing ani ko meeting nyin kono ye ko lumen kacha me alon ko cabinet nyin biri mita ye meeting soto minister me maralin dokunyolo kunya la Gambia communications honorable Ibrahim Silla ye doku bulol me landi ani ferol me landi pour ko nyoje ko nyin ka sonende no yan Gambia ani ka internet nyina doku nyulu pour ka joknyolo sonende no Gambia ani ngo mafangol fannal mbo kibaro nyu futandalia Mamos Media wala kibaro win safe PRC ifananko President Adama Barrow atlemu ijawoti menkere fabakar tombon jata de me alonko atlemu PRC la nyatun ko tan tembo nyinna afanela wosi tandi ako be tembo mento President Adama Barrow wala mu PRC jawbati point la newspaper le wasafe oje jalo ko jama yalo menna afanan yamaro ki ako TRLC be do ko nyi menna isi dandalaro kino masakunda ka foy ko ka yaya jamme kitindi o man nafa so do bari mol men batata yaya jamme koto abe lafila police korsiro ke wala yawlu kododi wala wari yawlu makoy wala kuma yata ka foy be yaya jamme kitindi la be yin tembo nyi menna standard la newspaper le o safe gamsel iko julomen duntela sayin atadal 4 billion killing me alonko nyanda ko wolo jo kafoblu me alonko wolo be maralin ni nata nyoki jonyolo ala Gambia banko nyin kan ako ni yaje bayin tembo ni mendo julomen bela gamsel ni abe kachabi abita 4 billion killing million kema fula talulu wolo kodo nyi bela mentara kanyang doral kodo million muang anilulu for ala newspaper wala yin safe semen kadro ngadon kibaro nyim fan kono e ko yin tembolu to nyin talata tamila aramisa tambila tubabu karotil mo anin killing iko masakunda ye bembake ministalu inin president nyin ye bembake pour ka ferol landi ko menketa honorable Ibrahim Sillati ala kafunyin waran abe ministry nyin mento ye ferol landi ko bukaje internet la doku nyalu anin jokinyolo telephone la fannala anin jokinyolo men ya lonko abe kata through online la wara internet la pour ko jokinyolo sone andu nyaano Gambia ferol ni lablo men dandi landi ko be tembo nyi mento Gambia nyanda kafuta ko tuba bantla bankulu be nyamen pour ka karamulu makoyno internet to anum pour ka je ko mesi karaw ni soni andi no nyamen Gambia kono ko nyanda ko yo lablo be landile anu kono nin kemamu wani woro o be nyanda ka kurme anon ko nyanda ka mafa a container fanan ako purka molumen fanan be doku bundalu to fonninkelu wol fanana nyojoki nyolo ani be doku men kelme ya loko be kanen drokela ko nyin fere kutol men na menara technology iko fanan ninkememu tawora ni lulu nyanda ko fanan be ma fa katabake polisi wala doku nyi sona ndino nyamen ani men fanan ya lonko wala fanan ka doku ke purka televisionolu ana joki nyolo lugo fichi falu pour ko fanan fasa no nyam pour fanan sila doko keno nyamen anin ka fonding kel fanan sembentu ya pour fan ka banko yirwa fanan samano nyamen akoni mu kote me ya lonko ni ben doko nyin kala bri internet lem fo telephone lo bang anyanda ke dalatu me ya lonko abe sonela molubulu pour ka doko nyin keno ana ke kudi fanan me ya lonko abe kemani ala la keku akana komendan ko drone akonyi mukute me yalan ko kuma ya bata pour ka banko la fonko nyin lafa otonabo nyama femfe me yalan ko abe yirwani sambalana nina ta nyin doku ko la nyanda ka ke ay kendea ana ke kude me yalan ko barakala anu ay ke kude me yalan ko adabe sonela to barbuna en safa wala Mamos la media te APRC ifanayela wosi dañi itandi ikoɓe en tembo men to président Adama Barrow wala mula jawbati ade Fabakary Tombong Jatta me alon ko saynin tembo to atlabe APRC nyaton ko yakan ala wosi itandi akoye ye menje président Adama Barrow atelemu jawbati atudun Fabakary Tombong Jatta anana ketanu député lunu Serekunda la isma fon nyina anunga interview nyi menke anin journalist ka chamenke Star FM ayni banke ako Barrow fenfen keda bi ni masakunda kono ibatel jayila la ibatel tumilala kandung atle mu nyaton kote ko ni mu nyaton kote ila man sakunda mole fenfen kije wotete mu nyaton kote ibetel tumala betel jayila akota ne momoy kuka fanan ata toyala ito mari jayile batel jayila jalayila akota be kolbe lare nyamen koku be kekan itole wore batamin be kan ni tembo nyinto ite mokoten chodila wore te mokoten jayila ibatel president Adama Barrow e ka atele sababuta o bela me kibar bu namin safa wala mo point la newspaper te Oje Jallo me alon ko Omar Jallo ata kinana keta ministre jawra wato anin Adama Barrow la tembora anana anu politician kotola mati aya fanela wosi dani yitandi ana ya maroki ko TRRC pour masakunda si korosirke ibe ferolu warabe do ko nyimmen kekan pour meni ya lon ko batata ya jamal maral wato ya kata yawul de mano nyamen ako atla jeroto wala kuma yata kafo be yaya jammele ba kitin lale ware ba sambalana luwa nyatlingula akobe tembo mento men ya lon koy batata ya jammele maralo kono e nyanta kawlele juben e bawol de malo no nyame ako ngalono ko TRRC be ndoku nyi menna e be kisikisiro ke kan pour kaje meneketa pour ko wol kafu nyoma anu ndoku nyi nyanta katale kata fo me kono anu e be parela pour ka safarolu anie mirolu men soto pour ka a dima sakunda la pourse wor korsiro nya sa korsuno nyamen o nya wonyanta ka bang July la datul flama fongola kibar bu namen safa wala mustandard la newspaper te gamsel e ko julo men bele be tembo nyi mento asiata 1 billion Gambia ko dotile ate gamsel ye kibaro warambiribe kachaka National Assembly men kede député bumbati anun ye kaytolu warang ye kulumen sawirbe kachanyi kekan ya itendu wol kono ko julo men bele be tembo nyi mento e ko billion killing million kema fula anin tallulu mi yalon ko niyo ko do nyi kafu nyoma yayele mandi dollar ko doto abida fo dollar kodo million lulu birka do kundirke telephone company la pour telephone sonano nyamen ani internet si sonano nyame gaba ko kanyamen ikonyi menkere safaroje ni December karo fadula atil tansaba anin killing 2019 sawon kono wato len inata parenderke ko feromel landita pourquoi nyin doku nyin kendino Gambia anabe jumala la maralo kono wato ko abe gamtellem iko wata be gamtel bulu e kadu ko men ke ninkememu tensei itul ko be parendinole iko bari ko be sotonole me yalon ko o be ke ganyeleti ni sango nyimbanta iko bari ko la nata soro ndirike wala birin falendro keta andu nata mokuto londe wareto nata bo kibaro kala mako kabo December karo til tansaba anin killing ko ya itandi ko sign ya kafumen londe men ba nyaton ko yakan wol kono wala mo Halifa Salati atemo national memberleti da député bombato e ko nyim bodni kuto nyim mellota wala ciamano wala Mr Ahmed Tijan Jaloti e ko 2007 nyin kono e to natana kibaro sodo ko masakunda sign ye moleta me ya lonko wala be nyaton ko yakke kan gamsel e la nyin gateway kuto nyinna e ko dunto itul gamtel marar ngala ba sayna ta bondle atata mo kilingol koto anu wodum masakunda le natana wodi wolula pour ko semmentu ya promari simaralo keno nyamen iko to nata menke ye gamtel tu nyamen ani gamsel sign ibuka profit sotono wala ibuka kodo sotono ko nyanda ka nyamen saytul be jikire men ron konin kliani dingulu men kana me yalan koy nuka do ko wayatinna purutul nun e ka do ko keno nyamen e ma keno o nyama kibar buna men safe wala mu for yala newspaper de baade mo nyama kibaro to men frena me temena ka futa dalma na be ta do ko ma solo no la ninga fa ma fokun sounda ar salona harmari na so damal man nal baade malami maron dol kay kiyam man samba fulani mbara fanya tonda
Thank you, listeners. That was the end of tonight's news review and commentary from the Mamos team.
Mamos media, Atelenata Modobe, Alafu Mamos. Mamos media, Walenata Modobe, Alafu Mamos. Television on the radio, La Carola, you let the Jetabi, Molka, you the wedding. Multimedia, Africa, and in diaspora. Atarenata Modube, Alafu Mamos. Mamos Media. Multimedia, Africa, one in diaspora. Walanata Modube, Alafu Mamos.